Starting. Okay. So we are live and oh, right. I got to do the thing for James when he's editing this later. Good evening and welcome to the Hero's Breath podcast. I am your always confused host, Matthew Huddle. And joining me tonight is not my beautiful partner, Tom, but actually the handsome and effervescent Matt Basso. I want to say thank you very much for being here, sir.
Thanks for having me, man. Appreciate it.
All right. Well, I'm hoping this is going to sound all right because I don't actually hear myself. So as long as you hear me.
Yeah, it's coming through well.
Yeah.
So
okay, good. All right. So the record date is Tuesday, March 19th, 2019. And this is the first interview done on the Hero's Breath podcast. So again, huge shout out and thank you to Matthew. I appreciate this, man.
Oh, wow.
From one Matt to another. Hey, I figured you were the perfect introduction. And I don't want to oversell him, but everyone's going to see why in a little bit. First housekeeping out of the way. This podcast is brought to you by the Phi Center. That's phicenter.nyc, where it is an totally holistic integrative practice. They have acupuncture, PT, neurofeedback, of course, the mind program, something I've talked about a lot from the very beginning. It has brought me some huge benefits for my ADHD, my OCD, my depression, completely gone. So this is an incredible program, a great place. Go check them out. Get more information from the website, phicenter.nyc. And of course, a humble shout out and immense gratitude to James Morano. That's MORANO.com. We always fuck this up, and it's my turn. He is our editor and beard. He makes sure the video and the audio and everything work out really well. He is a professional editor and drone pilot. I was actually talking to him today. He was doing a music video in the city. So he's awesome. He's doing work with all sorts of brands, and he was kind enough to deal with Tom and I. So hugely grateful to him. I want to say thank you again. And go check out his website so you can see all this cool stuff he's done and is doing. And if you need his services, of course, if he's willing to work with us, he'll take just about anyone. So, he'll be happy to help you out in whatever endeavors you've got. All right. All that BS is out of the way. Matt, again, thank you so much for being here.
Hey, I'm excited. Thanks for having me.
All right. So Hero's Breath is all about the hero's journey, the multiple phases of development that Joseph Campbell, of course, expounded on, discovered, and told us all about, and really put into words. We always knew it was there in the back of every story, it was in the back of our minds. But when you map it to creation myths, to modern movies, and then to your own life and to the lives of other people, real, imagined, it doesn't matter. Every major story follows this pattern. And I know you and I talked about it briefly when we had met, that you can see the same thing in your own life. So why don't I shut up for a little bit and let you tell our gorgeous audience exactly who you are and what you do?
Sure. So we met because I, over the last year and a half, decided to get my Wim Hoff Method instructor certificate official.
Okay, now you got to back up and tell us who Wim Hoff is.
Oh, wow. I got to do the whole thing. Okay.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. We got to pretend our audience is stupid.
So we could talk about him for a long time, but basically, he is a guy from the Netherlands who, for the entirety of his life, has been studying different things: martial arts, meditation, and alternative routes to health and fitness. He's broken a bunch of records, running, in his shorts only, no shoes, no shirt, above the Arctic Circle, and running through the desert without water and hanging by his finger in the freezing cold, like thousands of feet in the air.
Swimming under the ice, I believe, too, right?
Swimming under the ice. Yep. He's has the record for being encased in ice for the longest amount of time. And the idea here is that basically he was trying to prove a point, which is that anybody can control their immune system if they know how to focus and clear their mind and get further in touch with their body. So he developed this breathing method, and lo and behold, eventually some doctors were like, okay, you've done a lot of stuff. It's worth studying you. And he convinced them that he could get other people to do all the amazing things that he showed he can do, basically in an MRI machine, after getting injected with an endotoxin, which is basically a dead bacteria, which when someone gets injected by this dead bacteria, it would basically cause your body to react as if you had the flu, headaches, nausea, vomiting, all kinds of uncomfortable things. He was able to stave all of that off. And basically 99.99% of people who have had this injected into their body cannot stave it off. They were like, okay, great. Well, it's because you're special and we don't believe everybody else could do this. And he said, no, I'll train random people over like a very short period of time, like 2 weeks, a week. You choose the people. All of these people who knew about Wim Hof decided to volunteer for the study. They selected 2 different groups, a control group, and then a group that would study with him. He taught them, and they were also basically able to stave off the infection as well. So then that led to even more studies, and hopefully they'll be coming out, I think, this year or next year, like 8 more published studies. And if you talk to any scientists and say, hey, what does it take to get a study published?
It's a lot.
It's a lot.
Yeah.
So it's pretty incredible. So that's his short story, not doing him much justice there.
Of course.
But I think the crux of it is there. And he's also a great guy and really wants to help people. So you and I met when I did a workshop at Tay's place.
At the Phi Center.
Yeah. Yep. And so I have a background in fitness and health, nutrition, wellness. That's been my business for the past just about 14 years now at this point.
Okay.
I started off at a big box gym and was a trainer there, then became a manager there, and then kind of decided if I'm going to continue doing this, I'll do it on my own. So I've been doing strength and conditioning privately with all kinds of different people, from CEO types, an Olympic athlete, just all different kinds of people. So that was the crux of where I started. And then because I suffered an injury, powerlifting, which is basically, the long and short of it, is that I gave myself a hiatal hernia.
Fun.
Yeah, fun, not fun. And I realized after doing the research what it entailed really and what was happening to my body. I decided that after having gone to the doctor and them saying, okay, well, we don't really see it in the x-ray, but if you do have it, which it's likely based on your symptoms, and a hiatal hernia oftentimes is a sliding hiatal hernia. So what happens is it intrudes into the esophagus. The stomach comes through the diaphragm, through the space, the hiatus by the esophagus, intrudes and then retracts. So it's not always in there, thankfully, for me, fortunately, because that would be very uncomfortable. So what I decided to do is, okay, well, I need to treat it myself. And basically I thought to myself, I need something that's going to aggressively work my diaphragm so that if I felt that it was engaged or things were happening, that I could sort of maybe separate the stomach from the esophagus using the diaphragm. So I looked for things that would be good, like, let's say, heavy breathing techniques. And I had done Buddhist sitting meditation, but that wasn't doing it for me. I had known about Wim, but I didn't really understand I would say,
implications.
All that the breath work entailed, like the specificity of it. Right. So I decided to practice it. I practiced it for a week and I felt better. So I'm like, okay, let me go deeper. And then I spent, a year getting certified. And that's how we met. So I've added that to my practice in general, which, as if you want to equate this directly to the hero's journey right now, my true opinion about that is that we're always finding challenges and that we're always trying to overcome things. And that's a good thing because the obstacles are good for us, right?
The obstacle is the way.
Is the way, right? Great book. It's the only real way to grow. And every time you reach a new position in life and, or a new position at work or a new relationship in your personal life, everything's new. So by the nature of it being new, there has to be some anxiety, fear, excitement, something about it, and a journey that you're going to enter. Right. So that was the thing that I added to my journey in health and wellness and trying to help people this most recently.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it is amazing.
Well, you actually touched on it. You said, like when you're going through things, when you're on that journey, you're just living through life, you're going to encounter these things. And, Tom and I have talked about it quite a bit on the podcast, is that the difference between the hero of the story and an NPC, the non-playable character, is that the non-playable character doesn't grow. The non-playable character, when you get the call to adventure, oftentimes there's the refusal of the call. And the NPC is the person who just keeps hitting the snooze button like ad nauseum, just doesn't stop hitting the snooze button. And then, as Ben Franklin said, not everyone dies when they die. Some men die at 25 and aren't buried until they're 75. And that's what Franklin said. And when you are engaged in life itself, yes, you will meet these challenges. And it's like, a humble brag here, but guys like you, me, Tom, Tay, we are constantly engaged in that. We're constantly involved in that. So the way you said it is, I laughed to myself because it's like, it's kind of a foregone conclusion to you. And I had to, because Tom and I sit down, we really talk about this and analyze this, we realize, it's not a foregone conclusion to a lot of people. And that, I think, shows the level where you're at in your life. But I have to ask you, has it always been that way for you? Do you remember a time in life where you maybe shirked challenges and stuff? I mean, even when you were a little kid, like, was there a moment where you kind of said, you know what, fuck this, I'm not running away anymore, I'm going to hit my challenges head on? Because as an alcoholic in recovery, I can tell you it wasn't that long ago.
So interesting. You say a lot of interesting things. But to answer your question directly, I've always been someone that was confrontational and adventurous. And I'm not saying that that's always a good thing. I'm just saying that that's my thing.
Right.
So for me, it's always felt normal to do different things. And so I went to music college. I didn't go to like traditional schooling, but I played a ton of sports in high school. So you would not necessarily have thought that was going to be the path. I was a good student. I wasn't like the top of my class. Maybe a little better than mediocre. I'm just, we'd get A's in classes that I really liked and B's in classes that I didn't care about.
Same here.
I was in the chess club. I also played football. So like, yeah, I'm not saying that this is necessarily a good thing. I'm just explaining because you asked from my perspective. So for me, it's always been about challenging and being competitive. And I was taught that at a young age, probably by accident, just my dad getting me into sports or whatever, and getting into martial arts very young. So I've always been into that. And so for me, it was like the natural path is, okay, well, I want to be a rock star because that's an awesome job. And I love playing music. So I'm going to go to music school. So I'm paying off my student loans, doing this, but I had an amazing experience. I was in a band for 5 years. We toured around the country. So that was an incredible experience. So it makes for a lot of interesting experiences. It also makes for a lot of failures, and you have to be willing to basically fumble and then pick up and keep going.
Yes.
And maybe I draw from sports teaching me that, because it was like, okay, as natural of an athlete I think that I was when I was younger, I would definitely fail at times. And you were just constantly taught to, you fumble the ball, you pick it up, you just pretend like that never happened.
You lose the game, the other team is better than you, fucking deal with it, move on.
And you go. Exactly. But what you said was, yes, you spend time analyzing it and you think that things are not naturally perceived that way by most people.
Most people, yeah.
And if you really take, a 50,000 foot view, you see that because most people are just sort of in the rat race. Right. They're punching into their job. And even if they really like it, they're stuck in an office. And it's the same kind of tasks usually most of the time, and it runs just in Groundhog Day type of fashion. Whereas I think when you're a trainer, you deal with people, so those people's lives are different every day,
and they involve you now.
Exactly. And then so your energy has to be willing to evolve to deal with how everybody's feeling and what mode they're in, and if they're going to cancel or if they want to train more, and so you don't know what to expect, and then you get trained to not know what to expect and be okay with that.
Yes. Yeah. Right? And that's a huge thing. And you know what? I say that, like, for myself, I haven't always been this way. And I realize I have to amend that, because when I was a kid, I think when we're young, we're the most true to ourselves as far as who we are. And then as we get older, expectations, from parents and religion and society and all this other shit, like, it's piled on. I'm not one of those people. I don't like to blame society. Well, not anymore. And I think at some point, you stop acting like yourself and you start acting like the person you're expected to be. But now, if you're a true NPC, you'll just go that way until they put you in the ground. But when you go on that hero's journey, forcibly or intentionally, that at some point you'll feel that conflict. Like the show Heroes, if you remember a while back on NBC, they talked about that a lot, how there was always this disconnect between the body and the mind and the soul within the person that has to go on this journey. And I think I've always felt that. And I find it interesting to hear you say that, you were always bred for that. And in a very real sense, I really envy you, because I was always expected to be, I grew up in a very Christian house, and Christians don't think much of themselves. You have to be the most humblest Christian that there ever was to be the best Christian that you could be. And I'm not even like, this isn't even hyperbole. Like, this is exactly the bullshit I was fed. So I'm like really envious of you. I think of myself like, what could I have done if I had had your upbringing? Not like I'm lamenting it, but it's like, I want to show people the difference between, if you have all the circumstances you could have hoped for, you still have to go through this process of development.
Sure, but you're not too late to the party,
no.
right? And that's what I'm saying to you. I think whenever you awake to that, it like, honestly, that point is like everything is different, and you have that choice now.
That threshold.
Yeah. So honestly, like, you can, like I said before, it's not necessarily a good thing that that's what I did, because I mean, my dad had his own business, and so it didn't go well, and like, you have to watch failures and stuff. And so what I'm saying is, like, it doesn't always mean, let's say, we'll just put in quotes, good. It just is what it is.
Right.
So no matter when you find it, like, you can't look, again, the whole object here is not to look in the past or worry about the future, but be in the present, so you can be the hero. Because thinking too much about how, what if this, or when that, then that ruins the whole journey right off the bat.
Exactly.
So I would say that, like, for anyone listening, and even yourself, and for me, it's like, I've become more process oriented. Like, that's my whole thing, is that it's great to have goals, and that's super cool. But like, I've learned that flexibility is better than goals, because goals, what happens is, like, you'll have short-term and long-term goals, and then what's the moving target is the path to get to those goals.
Yes. So
flexibility is way better, because if one path doesn't work, sometimes people just literally, they're like, I'm done. This isn't going to work. And then instead they don't climb under the wall and over the next wall and around the bend. They're just kind of like, I'm done. So to me, flexibility and process oriented. So you have to enjoy the challenge. You have to enjoy the times that are like wins, and you're like, wow, I feel really good today. And you have to also appreciate the times when you're like, this isn't going well. What if this happens? And then you're like, okay, catch yourself, learn from it, move on.
Right.
So
Tom and I have recorded 16 episodes, and I would honestly say that concept has come out in probably 9 out of 16 recordings, because loving the process. You listen to Gary Vaynerchuk, Tai Lopez, Tony Robbins, Peter Sage, like all these people. It keeps coming back to learning to love the process. Like, I said this in one of my old channels. I'm on number 3 right now. Third brand's the charm. In one of my first iterations, I had referred to the U.S. Marines motto, "Love the suck."
There you go.
Love the suck or embrace the suck, depending on which who you talk to. And that is really, like, these guys. You see some of these Marines. Like, if you have any friends in the military, if they didn't get into a training course that would kill a normal person, they were pissed off.
Yeah. It's total grit and the willingness to be uncomfortable. My first podcast was actually with a buddy of mine who I met as a trainer at a big box gym. And now he is a psychologist in the military, and he will be working with Navy SEALs. And he always has amazing insights, and we always had a great rapport.
Right.
But now he has all these very interesting things that these experiences he's collected, even in the military. So he was my first go-to guy, because psychology, he kind of had it all. He was a trainer, and then he was like, I want to be a psychologist. I was his manager at the time. He stated that, and then he went through all the steps. Talk about hero's journey, killed it. And if you listen to that podcast, talks about a lot of amazing things that we're touching on, and even deeper in the psychological. Like, he came up with some awesome things that I'm like, you would only know if you were a psychologist. Because from dealing with people and studying it, which shows you that you can always go deeper and deeper and deeper. And that's why you keep returning to this main, let's say, theme or idea, but there's still so much to learn from that idea. And it's like training or working out, right? You have to work out your body, you have to work out your mind, and you have to work out your ability to do these things, to be process oriented, right? We're built for survival. Like humans are built for survival. And I touched on this in the Wim Hof workshop. And I go back to this all the time because as a trainer, you're always talking about, okay, what's the best diet? What's the best workout? What's this? And I'm just like, well, you're not going to beat evolution, like within your span of like lifetime. You do the best you can, but we're built for survival. So the thing that we go to, whether it's mentally or physically, is that. And if we've taught ourselves this comfortable survival mechanism, then we're always trying to avoid
pain,
challenges and pain.
Yeah. And you know, it's funny. I tell that to my Pilates clients all the time because there are certain positions we'll put people in on the reformer. And like I do a lot of isometric holds because I want to build up people's postural muscles. Obviously, it's a huge part of Pilates. And you know, I'll have their arms in a certain position, and I say naturally your arms are going to try to cheat. You know, your other parts of your body are going to try to help the parts that we're trying to focus on. And I'm constantly making corrections. I'm very hands-on in the studio. I'm pulling their arms apart and everything. I said, your body's 84% water. Water flows downhill. Your body is mostly water. It wants to follow the path of least resistance. And so we're not going to allow that in here. You have to go against it. And it's the same thing you said. And I love that you said that in that class. You had a lot of great insights in it. I tell people, you know, people see the videos on TikTok of me getting into the ice bath, and you know, I tell people I did it and I've been practicing. I haven't gotten into water again since, but I've exposed myself out to the cold a bunch.
Yeah, I've seen it. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah. So it's like people, you know, were asking me, it's like, so, you know, you're just ballsy? I'm like, no. I said, there's a science to it. I said, we spent like 2.5 hours preparing to get into that bath. I said, there was 2 hours on the philosophy and the theory and everything before we even learned the breathing. I'm like, what, really? I'm like, yeah, you can't just jump into a fucking ice bath. There's obviously going to be prep work for it. So you said a lot of interesting things. And I like that you brought up that insight, you know, that our bodies, our minds are going to want to go to what's comfortable and avoid pain and avoid conflict. How do you think, because obviously there's so many different parts to it, we're going to get more into the breathing stuff, but I want to, because the ice bath thing is like what's on people's minds.
Sure. Yeah.
You know, it's like the RSD guys say, hey, betas, we'll teach you how to get laid, but really it's about personal development. Like they use that as a lore. The ice thing is like the thing people see.
Exactly.
So how do you think that really, do you think exposing yourself to the cold really is a great physical effect, or I should say physical manifestation of the internal struggle? You think that's a good analog?
Absolutely. Because it's so immediate.
Yeah, it is.
Right? It's so immediate and in your face that you can't ignore it.
Right.
And then you're faced with this choice that it's like you're faced with a choice so instinctually that like you can't do anything except either accept or lose immediately. Right. So the feedback is immediate. Like a lot of things don't have immediate feedback. Like if exercise had a great feedback loop, then no one would be overweight, right? Because if I said to you, hey, if you go and jog 5 miles, you lose 5 pounds. People would just eat and then run their 5 miles and lose 5 pounds. But that's not how the feedback loop works.
Right.
The feedback loop of cold water is you get in cold water.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah, I remember.
and without the prep, it's worse.
Yeah.
Right. And that's why we prep for it, because at least you learn, you're like, okay, I'm understanding what's going to happen. I'm becoming okay what's going to happen. We have an amazing breathing session, makes you feel great before you do it. And then it's still challenging, but you're able to work through it. So because of the feedback, it's an amazing way to really, let's say, experience the challenge and teach yourself something about yourself.
Yeah, and that's the thing I found most amazing. Like, I have ADHD. I have times where I can meditate and times where I really just fucking can't. And before all this, about, I would say 2 weeks before, when we had that polar vortex, Tom and I kind of challenged each other because he had already done it, obviously, with you and a bunch of times. And I decided to go out. We both stripped down and we both like sent each other videos of us walking around our block. in the vortex. And this was me without preparing. And I stayed out there for a good 2 minutes, and it was like, numbing. But I just happen to have a very high threshold for that kind of pain. And when I was younger, I noticed my metabolism is different. As I've gotten older, I'm not as well. I love the cold as much. When I was a kid, I didn't walk around in shorts, but my friends would say, if Matt's teeth are chattering, check your toes, because I was just never cold, So now I'm like, it's different. I'm older and I was doing that, but I like how you preface that. The prep work is so important, because after I took your class, and then we had that snowstorm moving in, and I just, stripped down. I was just in my pants. I was standing at Robert Moses. The rain was starting to come down, and I felt so fucking present, so in my body, but at the same time connected to the planet. It's like I could feel the storm moving in and through me and around me. I was one with everything, but yet I wasn't like flitting off. Like people take psychedelics, they just leave their body. Like I was in my body, but connected to everything. I felt like a really solid, grounded hippie, if that makes any sense.
No, it does. And that's why it's better than drugs, because
you hear that, kids?
Yeah, it's basically a controlled high.
Yes.
That's really what you're doing. You're teaching yourself how to make yourself feel really great in a very controlled manner, where you can push the limits of it, and I'm talking about the breathing part, or you can kind of like leave and say like, all right, that was good enough for me. And I want to stress that it's important to prepare for the cold for a lot of reasons. Obviously, safety is a big one, right? Because the cold will always win.
I like that phrase.
So you don't want to overexpose yourself, especially in the beginning. You're keeping things limited. 2 minutes is a great amount of time. Pretty much not much bad is going to happen in 2 minutes. Right. 2 minutes. But one of the other things about being prepared is that if you limit the experience to a good experience the first time, you're likely to revisit it.
Right.
And just to reflect and give you an idea, is that my last workshop, which I did with a group, an awesome group at this very cool place called Locomotion.
Yeah, we know
Kevin?
Chris and Kevin. Yeah.
Great. So Kevin had experienced jumping in water in a very cold lake, because his dog jumped in and he's like, screw it, I'll just jump in at some time prior in the years. And he immediately was like, wow, I can't breathe, and had to get out because everything constricted, right? As we know through science what happens.
Right.
And then when he got in the ice bath with me, he was really breathing heavily and had one of the hardest times doing it. And he's in great shape. It's none of those things. It's just basically that he has this right here, this
experience.
Scar. Yeah. So you want to go slowly with the cold exposure, cold showers first, dip your hands in cold water, dip your feet in cold water, then get your body in for, 30 seconds, come out, do it again another time for a minute. And then this way, this builds this positive experience with it. And you're not just like, boom, I'm going to jump in, jump out. And then that's what I'm left with all the time.
I like that. Yeah, because you would say, because like I got in the water and I could hear my brain screaming, you know what? Puss out now, please. And like I couldn't breathe. And afterwards, you were just like, dude, you did it perfectly. You were fine. And I'm like, you have no idea the trauma inside. But I guess because, like I said, I've always been very used to the cold, and I've never really had a terrible experience with the cold, and just dealt with it. I guess maybe that's why. I just kind of just like, I just hit that snooze button and just said, nah, screw it. I'm going to stay in.
Just like you hold on to some negative things that happen when you're a child, you hold on to positive things too. Yeah. And you can recall those things. And if you just like sort of drive around during a time when school buses are out and you see kids like teenagers, there's always a kid who's like inevitably underdressed,
right?
In the freezing cold, but they're fine.
Right.
They're like with their friends, and everyone's got like a thick puffy coat and one person's wearing like shorts and a sweatshirt.
My favorite is when they have the puffy coat on top and then the shorts on bottom.
Yeah, like shorts, like they just came from playing sports or something. But they're fine. They're like, whatever. I'm still gonna walk home. It's gonna take me 15 minutes, and I'll get home and I'll be cold and I'll warm up. Right. Now we're like, no, we can't be cold, right? We have to be the perfect temperature the entire time, and that really messes with your body. It messes with your immune system. It messes with you physiologically in many different ways. Always trying to be comfortable, essentially. You don't adapt as well.
Yeah, no, I really like that. And speaking of feeling good, now I want to get into the breathing part, because as I said, the mind program, the neurofeedback system, has, for all intents and purposes, basically cured my depression. Like I would get these awful I have dysthymia. So it's not like the manic, like these huge ups and downs. I'm never gonna, commit suicide. It's just this constant down he goes, and it would take sometimes months for me to go down to the lowest point before gradually coming up. So sometimes I would get into these horrible depressions and not even know I was there. And it got so bad at one point I got tested to see if I was on the spectrum, because I was just so withdrawn and disconnected from everyone, and nothing in the world made sense. And the doctor was just like, you don't have autism, but we could kind of figure out why you would think so.
Okay.
So that's how bad it used to get. And now I just don't get it anymore. In place of, because of obsessive compulsive disorder is something else I was diagnosed with, and that is an anxiety-based condition. Whereas the depression used to tell me when I was getting off track. Like, I learned how to use my disadvantages to an advantage.
Right.
ADHD, hard to concentrate, but it lets me see the bigger picture and everything. Like, it lets me pick out the details and see the full image. So it's like, this pointillistic map. OCD, I pretty much have never forgotten my phone anywhere. So like, that's me. Like, I flipped the script,
That's great.
So my depression told me when things were off track, I need to meditate or pray or whatever, but now that's gone. And anxiety started to kick up more now in its place. So and as you were talking about the nerve, the vagus nerve that goes up there through the diaphragm, I noticed, since I've been doing the breathing, if I don't do it for a couple of days, that anxiety starts to creep back in. As soon as I do a good set of the breathing, goes back down. Right? Can you explain that to our audience, why this has helped me be a little less fucked up?
Sure. I mean, there's probably a lot of reasons, but I will say this, that the vagal system is like the longest nerve system that you have in your body. Mm-hmm. And one of the major connections is through your esophagus, sort of down through the diaphragm into the stomach. So the brain-gut connection. And where we are right now in science is that there are a lot of studies going on because of a ton of autoimmune diseases like Crohn's, colitis type things, and just other things that, let's just say, express themselves through gut discomfort. So people saying, my stomach's bothering me. I'm not really sure why. I get these headaches and then stomach aches, whatever. Now they're studying gut bacteria and the link between how you feel, like depression, anxiety, and how your stomach feels. So there's just an appreciation that now we know the vagal system, the nerve especially that goes between the brain and the gut, right through that hole, through the hiatus. So the picture of space, like I just call them holes, basically. They're very important.
Yeah, that's all they are.
Yeah, right? Where your food goes down.
Right.
At that juncture is a major connection. And if you breathe and you work your diaphragm, just like you would work any other muscle, you allow it to flow a little bit more freely. You push around your organs. You actually give yourself a massage from the inside out. I haven't met anybody that doesn't really like massage. Some people don't like to be touched, but I even think that those people still want to have a massage.
Yeah, if a robot could do it, they would let them do it.
Exactly, right? Because they understand like that it feel good. But most people like massages because it feels good on the muscle tissue.
Right.
Think of this happening inside your body with your organs when you move your diaphragm aggressively. So you're pushing your organs, your heart, your lungs, because they're on the top, and then your stomach, your spleen, your liver, all that, your colon, your intestines down on the bottom. And then you're moving and, let's just say, lubricating, the way I think about it, and creating space right where that juncture should be. And it's just proven that that stimulation of the vagal nerve is the kind that calms you down. So if you have good vagal tone and you can explore that part of your nervous system, you can calm yourself down. And that's likely why a lot of breathing in general helps. Like breathing helps lower the acidity level in your body, which will help with a lot of other issues. Like that's just a whole other amazing thing in and of itself by getting a lot of oxygen in and clearing a lot of carbon dioxide.
Yeah.
But the actual physical experience of moving the diaphragm, same thing with going with oming, like yogis like to om.
Yeah.
And it's proven that singing, dancing, that kind of movement stimulates the vagal system and makes you feel calmer. So if you have anxiety and you start to sing, it should make you feel better. And it does. I mean, if you experiment with this stuff, it works. People use tapping because the vagal system connects in different parts of your body, like down your forearm, on your face. So people do these things before they go and speak in, let's say, public speak in front of a group. So if you can get some good tone to your vagal system, and breathing's a great way to introduce it, then that's why you sort of calm the anxiety level down. It's straight up science. Like, it's not even arguable. You can't argue it.
This isn't some airy fairy hippy dippy woo woo nonsense. Far from it.
No, and the coolest thing about the Wim Hof method is that if you ask me, I've done Buddhist sitting meditation. I've just sat there, did martial arts, I've done counting, like box breathing. But because of the aggressive nature of this, with the counterpoint of the calm part of it, you sort of explore every route there is with the breathing. And it just gives you a process that works. So I'm literally just saying, okay, you do this, this, and this, and then you feel this. Right. It's literally like a program for working out. And I think the disconnect with other kind of meditation is like there's a lot of what's going on mentally. Right. And then it becomes too neocortex.
Right.
That overthinking, judging brain, and not enough deep reptilian, just like animal basic survival brain.
I like how you said that. And you know what's funny? So like you taught us, I try to make sure I really get into this point and don't lose it. All that taken into account. I mean, I want to say thank you, by the way, because since I took your course, I've been feeling a metric dick ton better.
Oh man!
So
thank you.
Thank you. I mean that. And so, all right. So I would say I do the breathing like 5 out of 7 days out of the week, just because of scheduling and everything else, right? And I see the last time I had done some cold exposure, I was up in Northport, and I was in my car. So obviously I can't lay down because that's the way we were taught. So this time I tried like sitting up, and you know, it's also like you taught me too, is like normally people do it through the mouth, but because I had mentioned that my sinuses are all screwed up inside. Like I'm one of those people, I can't go underwater without holding my nose. Cannot. People, oh, blow a little. No, it like there's some sort of air pocket in my fucking head. It just sucks the water right in, right? So like you were telling me to like do that. And I had the flu a couple months back, and I realized I still had, this is gross, tune yourself out if you don't want to listen to it. I still had mucus and shit in my sinuses behind my fucking teeth. Oh, and all that stuff started coming out, to the point where I was like hawking up this like disgusting yellow glue, all from like doing the breathing technique. So at times it's really difficult for me to do. Plus the asthma, I can't always get like that full breath. But sitting up for the first time in the car kind of like helped. So now I kind of like mix it up. Like some days I'll do it on my back, some days I'll do it sitting up. And it's really making a difference that I actually shorten each pace, you know, because we go in cycles. If you look it up more, like I'll actually shorten it. Instead of doing like 40 reps, like I'll do like 15. And perfect. Still, right, and I'm not getting the tingles, I'm not getting the dizziness, I'm not getting all those like amazing sensations. But when I'm done, I'm just like, bring me this fucking day, I'm gonna eat it. You know, it's like I'm still up and ready to go.
It doesn't have to be that lay down and go there session. Right. So what you're doing is you're teaching yourself different processes of breathing, and then you're saying, I want this one for this reason, and I want this one for this reason, and that's exactly what you do to make it your own. That's the whole point. I think Wim wants that for people. I think that there's a method because that's what was studied, right, by the doctors. They're like, okay, let's pick a protocol and work that protocol, because that's how scientific studies work.
Yeah.
But really, you start to go by feeling. And that's exactly what you did. And I highly recommend, with the car off and not driving, sitting by the beach, you know, doing 15 rounds instead of the 40. And try it sitting up. Try it turned on your side. Try it laying on your side. Try different ways, right? Because again, remember, we're working a muscle. So you're going to feel different pressure from different directions. Even with your stomach, right? If I'm talking about the hiatal hernia again, if your stomach's, if I lay on my side and my stomach's falling down to the side that it should be falling, then I might be able to release that pressure. If I lay on my other side and the stomach's kind of going on top of my other organs, I might create more pressure. And that's actually worse for the hiatal hernia, because then if I'm already experiencing where it's slid in, it's going to push in more. Right. So that's why you see people giving themselves massage. So think about your body. Again, some people like to hang upside down, right? So there you go. So you're unloading the spine, you're doing all kinds of different things, you're pushing blood to your head. It's the same idea. In different positions, you work with gravity in different ways.
Next time I'm at the Pilates studio, I'm going to do the breathing hanging from the fucking Cadillac.
As long as you're strapped in and you don't.
I'm
can't
fine.
hurt yourself.
I put my knees over one bar, put my feet on the other. Don't worry, I'm not coming down on my head.
Okay. I just want to tell everybody, safety first.
Yeah, don't do what Matt's doing.
Yeah, don't do the breathing in water. Don't do it hanging upside down.
Yeah, actually, you mentioned that in the class that he was working with a professional surfer and they had to part ways because of that, right?
Well, him and Laird, yeah. I mean, I don't know if it was necessarily because of that exactly. And I don't know the specifics. I just know that they did work together. They have a good relationship still, but they just don't do anything business-wise. I think they're both doing their own business. But Laird's workouts do definitely involve a lot of breathing and holding breath and going underwater, which is extremely dangerous because you have something called shallow water blackout. And if you listen to interviews with Laird, he'll tell you that, and even it's in some books, that he's done some things that he's changes the protocol now because he realizes people were passing out too much. And because they have lifeguards and people there knowing, thank God nobody's gotten hurt because they just go in and they grab the person, they pull them out.
Right.
They come to very quickly and they don't take a breath underwater and they're fine. But that's a very, very real possibility that you want to avoid. So that's why we do the breathing before we get in the water. So you're nice and calm. And then when you're in the water, you just teach yourself to resist the urge
to hyperventilate.
Right. And just and go slowly. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. There's so much. Shit, we're almost coming up on an hour already. There's so much. Yeah, there's so much here. So all right, before I forget, I want to make sure people can get a hold of you. What are some of the best ways for, I mean, you're going to send me all the links later, you know, email, whatever contacts you want. So this way I can add it. But why don't you blurb it out for everyone to be able to follow you?
Sure. Pretty simple. On Instagram, it's Iron Lotus PT. You could search my name, Matthew Basso, or Iron Lotus PT. You'll find it. You could look at my website, which is ironlotuspt.com. And you could find me on Twitter at Iron Lotus PT as well. I try and keep it like straight up easy.
Yeah, you know, branding.
Crazy name, Iron Lotus.
Actually, I don't think it is. Let me. Whoa, wait. Oh, here's something. I'm so glad we brought this up because I wanted to ask you from the beginning. Are you? You're
gonna ask me about the movie?
No, I was gonna ask you if you're a fan of Avatar: The Last Airbender.
Oh no, I don't know. I don't even really know what that is.
Oh, okay. See, you would totally dig it. Okay. It's the 4 elemental, you know, theory done as a kids cartoon.
Okay.
But it's honestly amazing. It's probably my favorite like franchise, like kids, you know, cartoon franchise. They did real martial arts and tied a specific martial art with a specific element that some people in this world can control. And there's this one person, the Avatar, who gets born into each of the 4 nations, each one being of an element that has the ability to have all the elements. And they're actually the bounding between the spirit world and the human world.
Oh, wow. Heavy.
And then they had a second series and all that other stuff. So in it, there is this like kind of secret society called the White Lotus. And it's mostly like these old people, but in like the first original incarnation of it. And they, you know, they're all dedicated to, you know, spirituality and study and understanding and wisdom and all that really cool stuff. So like the contrast of iron and the lotus being the spiritual flower, like immediately as soon as I saw, you know, so what you did, Iron Lotus, I'm like, it put the duality into my head immediately. So kudos on that.
Well, I love martial arts. I grew up doing Kung Fu. I think that's where the basis came from. The idea being you need to be hard and soft at the same time. You need to be different things at different times. The lotus being amazing. You know, I forget the Buddhist saying exactly, but I believe it's through the mud of materialism and the murky waters and you bloom into the sunshine of enlightenment. And I thought that was amazing too. And iron, sometimes you need to be extremely strong. And the reason why we train is because a human who is stronger is harder to kill. That's the bottom line. But what I thought you were going to ask me is a funny story is when I named my company and I started it, it was 6 months before this movie came out with Will Farrell. I don't know if you remember it, where he was a figure skater.
Oh, Blades of Glory. Blades of Glory.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
And in the movie, their main move, like their big move, was called the Iron Lotus. So I incorporated,
No.
like, yeah, I swear to God, I made my website and all this stuff. And then if you like Googled Iron
Oh,
Lotus,
shit.
it was like Will Farrell like spinning that guy around. I forget what his name was. And I was like, wow, what are the odds? But I like Will Farrell, so I was like, this
Yeah.
time's perfect. But that's what I
Yeah.
thought you were gonna ask me.
No. See, I'm not like I'm not a huge fan. So like I
Okay.
didn't really know that. But no, I got the conscious. And it's funny. Back to the hero's journey is at the end of the hero's journey, the hero himself has to be the master of two worlds. That's stage 16. And then you get the freedom to live, and then the ordinary world you return to is elevated because of the hero. But the hero has to bring, has to leave his ordinary world, go into the special world, acquire elixir, wisdom, whatever, bring it back to his ordinary world, and now he is the bounding point between the special world and the ordinary world, where he becomes that master. And so that's why I really appreciate your name as the Iron Lotus, because everything you just talked about, the need to be hard and soft, it's something like I recently got into that stage in my life, the Master of Two Worlds stage, because of my own journey, and go on about that in the podcast. But once you reach that point, and I think I would say you're probably living it, but I don't know. Like, we're gonna have to talk next time. We're gonna do this again next time if you're down for it.
Sure, we'll go
I want
deeper.
to talk more of the details, about your journey. Like, we got the overview, but like map it out and see, because I think it's one thing to talk about the hero's journey in abstract, to make references to movies and books and legends and stuff, and maybe glean examples from your own life. But the more it's done, I think, for people to hear from other people's lives, the trials they went through, the successes they enjoyed, the hardships they endured, and how it all kind of folded together, and how it's never stopping, because the hero's journey is not a line, it's a cycle,
right?
For that very reason, So I would love to do this again sometime soon, so we can go into a little bit more in depth with that, and hopefully help some more people out.
Sure. I mean, I could use more exploring in that probably for myself, because again, I'm so more process oriented that I don't know if I've sat down to like identify points for myself, even though like I definitely reflect.
It's there.
Yeah, I definitely reflect a lot, and I meditate a lot on these thoughts that I've talked about and that you've brought up. But I don't know if I really say to myself like this, I'm at this point or that point. I think I'm always sort of climbing. I always feel that like I have not accomplished, not even close. Like every day I wake up and I'm like, I'm gonna find the thing. I'm gonna find the next thing. Like I'm gonna get the thing. And of course, inevitably it's like, I'm working towards it, but I don't know if I'll ever feel, and maybe I'm okay with this. Like, I don't know if I'll ever feel like I did it.
But that's the process.
Yeah, and I agree. And I agree with you. So, but that's what I'm saying. Like, it's the cycle.
Yeah.
I don't know if I feel like I've even completed one cycle.
Okay.
Do you know what I mean? So, But I'd have
don't know
to
if you've gotten
think
there.
about it.
Yeah.
I've definitely beat some things for sure.
Right.
And then maybe I'm just not thinking about it that way.
Well, as Tom and I like to say, the hero's journey is cycles within cycles. So you'll go through like mini hero's journeys within one stage or two stages together will have their own, like it's like a very beautiful, complicated Swiss watch. All the gears kind of moving together. And then you have one large like timing gear that like controls everything. That's like the major life cycle. And it was funny. Yeah, I knew it was there, and I had talked about it on my old channels, but it wasn't until I really worked on this brand, on this channel, and like sat down and like wrote it out and went, holy fuck, I'm still in it, and like really wrote it out. And so like towards like the last few stages, I was talking to, on the podcast in real time. Like, this is what I'm going through right now. So yeah, to be able to reflect off of, hopefully next time we talk, we'll be able to talk more about that for you.
Yeah, and I'll just say one more thing about it.
Please.
I think I do think about the largest cog. It's a good way. It's a good visual a lot, because if ever I'm feeling like I shouldn't do this, or like that's too hard, or like whatever, some negative thought, I'm like, at some point, dude, that whole thing's stopping.
Yeah.
And you don't get another shot at it. So whatever you're thinking is in your way, it's like this tiny, get some perspective, man, because there are people that have like a lot bigger issues.
Yeah.
And that's this little thing that you're fixated on is like this tiny blip in the matrix. And eventually it's all going to come crashing down and you don't get any more time.
Right.
And you're done. So you have to decide, what are you going to do with your life? And I usually feel that that's enough to be like, okay, it's dead, it's alive, and it's dead. Those are my two choices. And I choose to live, and I choose to do stuff and take chances. And like, that's what I think I always go to the larger cog. So maybe I don't appreciate the smaller ones enough to say like, oh, that was a win. There's a win, you know, sometimes we'll reflect on it, but yeah, I'm always thinking about the larger one, the more imminent, and I'm okay with it because I'm going to live it.
Yeah, that version of acceptance is beautiful, and I think it's something a lot of people have to reflect off of. And what you just said directly goes in line with our company's new slogan, which is expect nothing, earn everything.
That's great.
And that's exactly what you just said, man. So again, I want to thank you, Matt Basso, for being here. Everybody go follow the Iron Lotus, ironlotuspt.com on Instagram. You can see some really awesome workouts. You want to see some guy do a single leg squat on a fucking kettlebell? Go to his Instagram. I think it was very recently there. So just scroll down. You can check that shit out. It's hysterical.
It's always the stupid human tricks that people like. Yeah.
Right? It's exactly it. There's nothing else to say about that, man. Yeah. Thank you very much again.
Thank you so much for having me, man. It's a pleasure. You're a thoughtful guy, and I appreciate the way you think.
All right, man. Same here. All right. We'll talk again soon. All right, from Matt and Matt, this is Hero's Breath signing off. Take care, everybody.
Take care.